should be recording right now. It should be good. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have transcription services, but I think I can do a voice to text through some other mechanisms. So.
That sounds good.
All right. Did you get a chance to look over the questions?
I did.
Anything I'm missing?
No, not that I can think of. The only thing I think will be a challenge is it really is designed for focusing on one deployment, and so I don't know if that's what we want to do. I mean, I can answer some of them, but I think going beyond that one.
Yeah, again, there was the canned questions, which I kind of tweaked a little bit, but the nice thing about just doing a plain, boring conversation is that there'll be other things that'll come up and additional questions that'll be just great, and you're kind of the guinea pig on this. I thought it would work out well, and we just go from there. And then what I do is write up the whole thing and then send it to you. And by then you might think of something else or have, better, just to take the burden off you for having to sit down and type all this stuff up, because it's a pain in the butt, to be honest. That way you just talk it out. I could send you it back, and you could make kind of corrections off of it. Just that way you've got a basis to go for, and then we'll cut out a whole bunch of stuff. Probably only about 40% would stay in, because the rest is just going to be kind of not very exciting and not very, it's just the filler stuff. So that was my thought.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And you had told, I think it was a long time, I think I was maybe driving the moving truck out, and you were telling me just how many deployments you've been on and stuff like that, and I'd forgotten exactly what that was to better make questions. So, and like your list of deployments, I don't think we need to list those. Well, I mean, for my own benefit, so just starting with like the second question, who do you work for? The agency and the agency and job title.
I'm at 27 deployments.
Wow.
Since 2010. Some of them are quick ones. A lot of them are either domestic Ebola related, but I actually just went through and counted them up. So that's Ebola, Zika, other work when I was in EIS. So
right.
A lot there.
So all right, I'll just take some notes as well. So starting back, 2010 is when you did your first deployment?
Correct.
And that was only, 6 years ago.
Right.
And who were you working for in 2010?
So what I'll do to help out is I'll send you my CV to backfill anything that's missing. But 2010 to 2012, I was an epidemic intelligence service officer at CDC. I've been at CDC the whole time.
Okay.
And I was there for 2 years as EIS officer, and then I continued on as staff in the National Center for Environmental Health for 2 additional years. And then the last 2.5 years, I moved over. I was kind of, for a while, detailed to the Ebola response. And during that detail, the Division of Healthcare Quality and Promotion, DHQP, hired me on permanently. So I transferred to them, and that's the National Center for Emerging Zoonotic Infectious Disease. So, but that'll be in the CV. You can you don't have to take all those notations down.
Okay. No, I'm just making some very, very, very brief notes. So, okay. Wow, So have you been on a PHS deployment?
I have not. I was not eligible
because they need your agency mission essential.
EIS were mission critical. I actually was potentially had one. I was going to get special permission, but it fell through. It was with the Navy whenever that agreement fell out. And then I've been on RDF 5 for 4 years now, I guess. I joined August 2012 and just missed Hurricane Sandy. And then the inauguration, they decided to only take not this past one, the previous one. They only decided to take officers in D.C., even though my team was on call. And then I missed the last one in October because I was on my honeymoon. So I haven't had many opportunities. Unlike,
you've made up for it.
Yeah, that one didn't even go anywhere. That was just like staging for a week or two, depending. And one of the stagings was in Atlanta, but they said that I would have to stay in a hotel. And I was like, I live here. No. So good thing I wasn't there because that wouldn't have been a great experience.
Oh,
so, yeah, but I've made up for it in plenty of other opportunities. And then for Ebola, I wasn't eligible for the MMU because CDC put me on mission critical, because I would have been probably snagged pretty quickly for that.
Right. But it sounds like you did. Did you go out there, or were you involved anyway through CDC?
Yeah, I was involved for 15 months.
Okay.
So I don't know where you want to go back to. I just kind of jumped.
No. We'll work it all out in the end. It's just a lot of good information for now. So, wow, that's impressive. What? So do you, in your CV, do you have your list of deployments? What countries you went to and when?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, for international, I have Scotland for an anthrax investigation, Bahamas for cruise ship investigation, Kenya twice. One was over 30 days, and then Lagos, Nigeria for Ebola, and then I went to Geneva for Ebola-related work with WHO, and then that was it for international. But Kenya was 3 trips and substantially long. And then there was just a slew of domestic-related ones. So.
Okay. Well, and then what, from 2010 to what you're doing now, is it very similar work? What would you typically do during an employment, or has that changed?
It's changed substantially.
Okay.
Previously, when I was in Kenya, I was launching a study looking at indoor air pollution related to cooking, indoor, like household air pollution related to indoor cooking, because the way they cook their food over there creates a lot of particulate matter and carbon monoxide. And then once I left, well, it's tough because that's split. That's like the second half of my time at NCH. The first half was as an EIS officer, so I was doing applied epidemiology or field epi, and that was a whole number of things. And then I switched and did more exposure assessment for the cook stove in Kenya work. And then when I moved over to DHQP, it's been environmental infection control and healthcare worker safety.
I'll say that again. It's been
environmental infection control and healthcare worker safety. So that's my role during Ebola, and it's my current role now.
Okay.
So I address any air and water concerns in healthcare settings.
And what is your background?
I have a PhD in environmental health engineering from Johns Hopkins and a master's in environmental science and engineering from Penn State. It's called environmental pollution control, but it was like a hybrid program.
Right. Okay. And then I hate to just jump down to the next question, but when you are there, what agencies do you work with? I guess for a lot of people who aren't like the new environmental health officers, they're just kind of figuring out the agency, could be an Indian Health Service, and they don't know anything about how the job you have, or even foreign deployments or things like that. They'll probably never go on a foreign deployment. They might do a domestic deployment, but how do you make it overseas, how does CDC decide where you go? Is it the foreign country reaching out for something, or how does that, just kind of in a nutshell?
For CDC deployments, it always comes through, if it's domestic, the state health department or state epidemiologist will request CDC assistance. If it's international, then it would be the Ministry of Health, especially in like African countries, they would request our assistance. So someone requests CDC assistance, we just don't show up or go. So that's how we're invited into places.
And then your supervisor or somewhere up the chain makes the decision whether or not they're going to, which request to fill?
Yeah, for the most part, yes. It's, you have to have supervisor approval, but if you're in response mode, that usually gets kind of muddled, and you can, if you really need it, you can always make a case, and more often than not, if it's your skill set, and there's a reason why you're being requested, they're not going to say no.
Right. So do you? I guess. Do you have? Can you turn it down, or are you kind of obligated to go if you have the skill set? And are they forced deployments, or are they totally volunteer, or is it somewhere along the spectrum where you're expected to do so many? Do you understand what I'm saying?
They're volunteer. I mean, they don't force you to go. I mean, but I think, if you get into public health, especially CDC, you're not going to turn down an deployment unless there's, some outside circumstance, like a family issue or whatever. But you're not, I'm ready to go at any time. Right.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that, how that works. And then what I did is I looked at the environmental health officer a long time ago. They had done a survey in 2010, I think 2012. One was for the domestic deployments, and these were all public health service ones. And one was the international deployments, again, all PHS deployments. And they had asked just some very basic questions, and they kind of wrote together, it was only like 8 questions. It was very, very thin study. But with PHS deploying people, it gets, instead of their home agency, which they're kind of used to, people weren't getting paid or reimbursed for months and months, and that's why some of these questions are in there. Like, so my question about who arranges the logistics for your travel, and I know with FDA people that do deployments as part of their regular thing, they have what seems like absolutely zero input into that process. The trip planner just prepares them. You're going to these 4 cities in Germany, and one of them might be the town next door, but you're going to start here and then end there, and it just seems totally random how it's planned out.
For emergency response, our EOC will set up the travel, and they're actually very good about it, and there's no issues with reimbursement. It's actually pretty quick, unless it's a very long trip. It'll get audited, and it delays it like a day or two, but it's not a big deal. So, and when they book it, it's based off of the mission, so you're pretty limited anyway, and they find they try to find you the best hotel at per diem, and also the safest hotel as well. That's, especially internationally, that's always a concern. And they handle everything. Now, for some of the other trips that are, more planned ahead, that are domestic, we can have a little bit of a say, and if we're going to hit multiple places, we can decide which order, because that's usually we then work out with the state health department and say, all right, we need to hit these 5 hospitals in this, week stretch, or 4 hospitals, whatever. Which one should we hit first? So, it's usually driven by the actual agenda of the trip, not anything else. Right. And then we do have some say in what hotels and stuff, because I try to do that, and flight time. So we do have a little bit of a say in that,